Oh,
but
that's
she could
fair.
also sit behind us.
Um, just like sit here on the back. You know what? I'll just go on the back here. I like it. I'm gonna start.
I always eat the special ones. They're not bad.
I don't know why they like no one has it there.
I mean, I was like, I don't know. I have a lot of vegan friends, so I'm like down to try to eat. I'm not like always for it. If I can do anything, I would eat pescatarian properly.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah.
I
But we
yeah.
don't have good fish around here.
No, which is hard because
Yeah, that's completely fair. Yeah, these. I guess it's not in the 30th edition of the bylaws. Uh,
see Sean.
The bag is too full. It's not fitting in the bag anymore.
For the purposes of announcements, does any individual seek recognition? All right. There being no individual seeking recognition, the associate speaker will record the roll call.
Can everyone please say if they're here like loudly so I can hear it? Thank you. Senator Denny.
Here.
Senator Alamanji. Senator Anim.
Here.
Senator Bloom. Senator Borski. Senator Butusova.
Here.
Chair Centenaro.
Here.
Senator DeMarco. Senator Dami.
Here.
Senator Duarte.
Here.
Senator Duvetti.
Here.
Senator Eze. Senator Germain. Senator Ibrahim. Senator Imran. Senator Jamai. Senator Kim.
Here.
Senator Kumar. Senator Lequier. Senator Lewis. Senator Molesky.
Here.
Senator Malari. Senator Monda. Chair Mazzondo.
Here.
Senator Mello. Senator Nevins.
Here.
Senator Nguyen. Chair Onyeka. Senator Patel. Is that here? No. Senator Patuk. Senator Pastorello. Senator Fawn. Senator Prabhakaran. Senator Prabhakar.
Here.
Chair Rabin. Senator Rue. Chair Sarna.
Here.
Chair Sharma. Chair Stamen. Senator Silveria. Senator Strong. Senator Timken. Senator Tao.
Here.
Chair Tran. Senator Verma. Senator Wu. What? 26. Oh, wait. 34.
Senator Trump.
Oh, it wasn't? I'm so sorry I missed it. How much was it?
With 35 voting members, a quorum is present. The minutes of the last meeting were sent out 48 hours prior. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All right. There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved without objection. For officer reports and committee reports as well, we will be limiting it to new information and urgent updates. Questions will be waived as well. I now invite the student trustee to make an to issue a report. Okay. Vice President Leone is recognized.
Yeah, actually, I'm not going to pull it up. She wanted me to read some things. The two things that she wanted you guys to know is the two main initiatives that she's adding to her report out. I tried to pull it up. I can't find it on my phone right now. So the two new initiatives is the housing thing that she's trying to do, and she has a board meeting with the Board of Trustees. So if you guys have any questions for her, for the Board of Trustees, for that board meeting, please email her at studenttrustee@umass.edu. Any questions that you guys want me to relay back to her? Cool.
Questions will be waived for all officer reports. President Humphreys.
Hi, everyone. My report out's up there. Just really quickly, can you raise your hand if you actually brought non-perishable goods to donate? Okay, so we do have some people. So what I'm going to do here is we'll get back to report outs. I'm going to ask when I come back up with some sticky notes just to quietly get up and bring them over here. And I'm going to start counting, and we're going to see who had the most. So that will be happening in about 10 minutes. Just very quietly come over when you see me come up with sticky notes and pens, and come bring your goods to like right around there so I can count them up. And then during committee of the whole, I will let you guys know who won. So I don't think we can do questions, right?
A quick question about this.
Yeah,
Yes.
at the same time, I think everyone will raise their hand except for the executive, like the secretary, everyone will.
Okay, so if you, all right, wait. If you're in ODC, put your goods in one pile over there now. If you're not in an ODC, put your goods in another pile. And if it becomes necessary to count, then we will do that. If not, then yeah, I'm thinking ODC probably won. So ODC one pile, non-ODC another pile. Do that quietly right now so I can count up. I'm actually going to run over to Harvest to buy a couple things to donate myself, and I'll be back. So thank you, everybody.
Vice President Honey. Everything's in my report out. Everything's in the report out. Everything is in my report as well. So Speaker Amaras.
Everything is also in my report out.
Chief Justice. Okay. Residence Hall Association President. Okay. Any RSO Council Presidents? Any agency representatives? On to Cabinet, Chief of Staff and SAR. New information or urgent updates? Secretary Bellerive. Secretary Merchant. Attorney General Darbanga.
Hello, everyone. So this is Jack McDermott. He's my new undersecretary, and he's going to be getting sworn in by the speaker today. So that is just my report out.
All right. Would the undersecretary designate please raise his right hand and repeat after me? I do affirm
I do affirm
to faithfully execute
to faithfully execute
the office of
the office of
Undersecretary to the Attorney General
Undersecretary to the Attorney General
and support the Constitution and general bylaws
and support the Constitution and general bylaws
of the Student Government Association.
of the Student Government Association.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Secretary Vitale. Secretary Hevlo. Secretary Lombo. Oh yeah, there's no yeah.
Hi guys. So I just have a quick announcement with Multicultural Night approaching. I'm gonna need some help with decoration. So if you're willing to help me, please just email my email. It's right there, SGA Diversity at UMass. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else same for me. But yeah, that's all.
Secretary Sharda. Secretary Nicholson. Secretary DeRose. Secretary Goodchild.
So just quickly, I finally had a meeting with the director of the WIP Dining about my food insecurity for veterans initiative. That went very positive, and I'm planning on working with him for the rest of the year to actually come up with a plan that's possible and feasible, and also supports the needs of veterans. I've been assisting Vice President Leone into motions. I've been continuing a disability initiative, working with an alumni.
And then my undersecretary should be hired very, very soon. And then I'm also continuing work on a textbook initiative. I reached out to the chair of academic oversight. And then I'm also continuing to try to get rec passes for some ROTC individuals who can afford it. And then that's all the new information. So thank you.
Secretary Manyanga.
Hi guys, everything's in my report out, but I just wanted to highlight two things. First, I wanted to remind you guys to take the National College Health Assessment if you haven't already. There's no direct link to it. Just search it in your email, National College Health Assessment. Please take that if you can. And we're also giving away free t-shirts to anyone who takes it. So if anyone takes it tonight and wants to show me that you've taken it, I'll make sure you get a free t-shirt. They're pretty cool. Also, I want to highlight, because this is our, I don't think we're going to have another Senate meeting before this, but on December 3rd, 2024, between 1 and 5, there is a mental health workshop. It's going to be in the Campus Center auditorium. There's going to be guided yoga, meditation, social prescription table, gratitude board, coloring, painting, so many fun stuff. And there's going to be members from CCPH there to help people access services and different things like that. So I'd love to see you guys there. I'll make sure it gets in the newsletter too. But yeah, reach out if you have any questions.
Hey guys, so my report that was submitted, but I do have some outstanding updates for you guys. First off, I just wanted to give a quick reminder for everybody about how to use the meeting room. There's a QR code right in front of the meeting room. If you're going to use it, please just make sure you scan it and make sure nobody else has booked it, because I've been hearing about some problems with people double booking or trying to go into the meeting room when somebody has it reserved. So just make sure you're looking at the QR code in the schedule there to make sure it's open. And then secondly, thank you to Secretary Sharda and Office Managers Jemiah and George for helping me move all the bikes to the bike co-op. They received all their maintenance and all but 2 are ready for distribution. So I'm going to open up the bike share either end of this week or early next week. So thank you to everyone there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
We're waiving questions today. Right. Any faculty senate representatives? Any ESO event representatives? All right. Any advisory board rep? Oh.
Hey everyone, I attended Alpha Ball this past weekend. Really fun. That's it.
Any advisory board representatives? Senator Kim.
I just went to the Student Advisory Board for Public Relations with Colin, Dale, and Cody earlier. We just went over like some fears and worries that students have, like in regard to like election results for like international students. It was pretty straightforward. It was a pretty straightforward meeting.
The university relations team, they sent out an email to international students, basically urging students to try to come back if they are traveling outside of the U.S. during winter break, that they should try to come back to the U.S. before Trump's inauguration. That is because Trump has made claims that under his administration there will be record deportations. And so the university relations team made that announcement. We followed up and said we want to make sure that the email doesn't scare students and that they can provide resources for any students that might have like concerns about the email that they sent out. We talked a lot about the UMass band, for example, is going to be performing at the Macy's Day Parade next week. So everybody watch the Macy's Day Parade. You'll see UMass, so go band. And we are trying to still continue to work on like a branded initiative. And so we're going to be following up with that kind of like next semester. So one thing that Nancy Buffon, she is the Associate Vice Chancellor for University Relations. She will basically be following up with us sometime next semester about like kind of like more tangible action items regarding that. And I didn't mention this last week, so I want to mention this too. Last week, we also attended Admin and Finance. And they are also going to be working with 2 things, actually. They are trying to conduct their own study about what the future of like housing will look like, and that ties into university relation today because the town of Amherst actually has a survey going out right now about what housing production in the town of Amherst should look like. We put it on our Instagram story yesterday. University Relations actually asked us to post that. Liam Rue actually texted me, asked us to post beforehand, so we beat them to it. Yeah. Any questions? Can we take questions on this? Maybe if anyone has questions.
Take questions on this.
All right. Cool.
To Senate committee reports, Chair Rabin's recognized. All right. Chair Centenaro. All right. Chair Sarna.
Everyone. Yeah. Hey everyone. I sent out an email early this evening. So we're having the holiday party on December 4th, which is our last Senate meeting. It's going to happen after the Senate meeting in the SGA office. The menu's been finalized. Everything's been finalized. If you guys want to participate in Secret Santa, which I highly encourage you all to do, just fill out the form that I sent. Make sure you do it before we all leave for Thanksgiving, so I can give you guys enough time to get gifts for whoever you're assigned to. And also, we're also doing a mini potluck. So if you're able to bring in any baked goods, beverages, anything at all, feel free to do so, and also add that to the sheet. It's all in the email. And if you guys have any questions, and if you guys want to help set up before the party, just send me an email, and I'll be happy to put you on the email chain for the holiday party. Yeah.
For chairs that came in a little bit later, we're doing new information and urgent updates for reports. We're not doing questions.
I didn't get my report out on time. So just some updates for the Hot Cocoa Hot Topics event. We finally have a room. So it's ILC room S231 December 3rd, 6:30 to 8. Basically, we'll be talking about divestment, Israel and Palestine, and just how it's kind of affected the campus climate. So if you can come, that'd be really appreciated. I'm going to have a poster out soon so people can have all the information on one page. And other than that, that's really it.
All right, so hi everyone. I couldn't get my report out, but this is pretty much it. So me and the Vice Chair Nevins have met with Garrett, who's the Director of Dining, and we're pretty much talking about improvements to the kosher plan and how it could be more equitable for people who want to pursue that plan. And so we're planning on making a full list on what improvements and ideas we should have going forward that could be potentially implemented after break or during the spring semester. So if you have any input you think should be involved, or if you know someone from the Jewish or kosher community who have any input that they would like to provide, please email me, and me and Senator / Vice Chair Nevins will make sure that the input is added on. So thank you.
Chair Stamey.
I'm assuming I'm trying to keep this short. Okay. And I will not go into my really long report out that I wrote because I did not submit my report out on time. I do want to make a couple quick announcements. The first one being that I'm sure a lot of you have noticed I have been conducting office hours almost every single day from 9 to 5, and almost every single day. And I've had a lot of RSOs coming in. It's been brought up in a few sessions that I've had with RSOs that there's a lot of misinformation floating around regarding budgeting philosophies, starting from last year and even years prior and going into this year. And it's caused quite a bit of confusion. So this is not just because of information students are getting from SGA officers, but also from their advisors as well. So I would just like to ask everyone if we can just make it a good practice. If an RSO comes in and I happen to not be in office because I'm in class, please just direct them my way. You can even put a sticky note on my cubicle so I know who to email or get back to. And if we can also just refrain from saying things like inflate your budget or ask for things that you may not need funding for, just because I don't know how many of you are familiar with our budgeting process, but it does change year after year with each new chair that comes in. So we should be giving the chair the opportunity to speak about the budgeting process. What was
the budgeting process last year may not be the budgeting process this year. The across the board cuts process is already changing from last year. So let's not give mixed information and let's try and stick to one story, please. That's the first thing. The second thing, did I touch on both? Oh, no. The second thing was actually, I don't know how many of you are aware, but we do have a working group that is currently working to create an RSO advisory board. We have a lot of exec members and legislative leadership members who are actively working on this initiative, but we would really, really like to see some senator participation. So if you are interested in helping us establish an RSO advisory board, please reach out to me. My email is up there, or you can even reach out to Darren and Jill since they are working on that initiative. And I think I will just keep it to 2 quick announcements for tonight. Oh,
Chair Sharma. Chair Sharma first. Are you? Okay. If there are any relevant updates.
bylaws, emergency funding motion came. We had it over the weekend. It did not pass. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leo, and I'm the vice chair of URAL committee. So Hydran is absent today, so I'm having him to report our committee progress. So the first one is that Trent has already met with, have a meeting scheduled with our advisor to discuss the creation of subcommittee accordance to the bylaw. And this will have ensured that we align with the necessary guideline and procedure. And the second one is that the URAL committee has we finished the auditing process to check the constitution and strategic plans of the clubs, so it progressed pretty well. However, there's still some clubs, they haven't attended our meeting. So I'll compile a list of those clubs and send to Rania, and to ensure that we can follow up with these clubs appropriately. And last one is that transportation initiative. I attended a meeting with administration to discuss the transportation initiative for the international student, and we explore various strategies that maybe beneficial, and we'll specify later. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for listening. And if you guys have any question, you guys can send to the Hydran email, and we'll reply very soon. Thank you.
The SGA advisor may be recognized. All set. And Claire's not here tonight. All right, so that leads us to committee of the whole. Does there exist a reason to call in the session the committee of the whole? Yes, and the purpose is for implicit bias training and also mass per food drive winner announcements. All right, oops. So the Senate will stand in recess and the committee of the whole shall be in session to discuss those 2 items. Pursuant to Title II, when the committee of the whole is called into session, parliamentary procedure is suspended and the Senate may not take any official votes or actions. Just want to split it. Just make sure they're off if they're not being used. Yeah.
I'll take it. 1 second, please. How long ago did she do that?
Perhaps we could do the food drive first.
Yeah.
Is Colin around?
He's right here.
Hey, Colin, do you want to do food drive announcements?
Yeah. Quickly, who brought this bag? Is it an ODC person? All right, raise your hand if you brought food in your produce. You want microphone? All right. Raise your hand if you brought food and you're from ODC. 1, 2. Wait, there was only 2? I thought someone. Naomi. You said everyone was from ODC. Raise your hand if you brought food and you're not from ODC. Okay. Sean, how many items did you bring? Actually, this is a mess. I think it was 5 plus 2. 5, so that's 11, 13. And what committee are you from? How many items did you bring? And Anton, you're me. How many items did you bring? I think it's ODC, but all right, that's 4. So wait, so anybody else not ODC besides how many items did you? 3. Okay, so I think it's pretty evident that ODC did win this, as they have 13 items and everybody else has 3 or 5 or something like that. So with that being said, ODC has won the food drive competition. You will be getting a pizza party in the near future, depending on when catering can accommodate that. I'm going to try to put that in tomorrow. Hopefully they can do it before the end of the semester. If not, I owe you one. So, pizza party. Now enjoy your presentation.
Okay, guys, so this is our implicit bias training by the Social Justice Empowerment Committee. So this is a little overview. We're gonna talk about what implicit bias is, why it matters, it in action, and then we're gonna test yours, and then talk about it, and then next steps.
It's pretty straightforward what our goals are here. It is to, above all, eliminate your implicit biases. And how do you first do that? You start recognizing what implicit biases you actually have, because we're all humans. To better understand the world, we just make these generalizations, however inaccurate they may be. And the first step is just having honest conversations about it, recognizing that we all make inaccurate generations, talking about them, and then just learning when to recognize them and know when not to act on them.
So what exactly is implicit bias? Implicit bias is subconscious attitudes or stereotypes one holds about another social group that may affect our understanding, actions, and interactions. These subconscious attitudes are shaped by experiences and learned associations between particular qualities and social categories. So examples are race, gender, class, age, etc. An example we have here is associating things like leadership to certain identities like gender or race. Historically, CEOs have been older white men, so this may be our first images that come to mind. Implicit operates unconsciously while explicit bias is overt and intentional.
So basically, go back. Okay. So basically, we're gonna do a little exercise so you can see what implicit bias looks like, kind of in a weird way. So when I show a word up, say the first thing that would come to your mind. Out loud. Okay, next one. Okay. Right. So this shows how quickly we associate things. When we have incomplete information, we rely on associative memory to fill the gap. And a lot of our thought process occurs unconsciously. So how are these originated? Basically, the brain's ability to make connections between two things is called associative learning. We try to categorize people using previously held information, whether that's correct or inaccurate. People usually internalize these biases at a young age, maybe from influences from their family, media, friends. People that you look up to might have these opinions, and you might internalize them yourself. Even if you, that's okay. Even if you hold beliefs that uplift equity and fair treatment, we might unconsciously have these biases, and so implicit processes can often undermine the most sincere intentions. So we rely on implicit cognition to move through the world, uncovering biases and understanding its effect on your life and others will ensure intentions and outcomes align.
Okay, so implicit bias affects many aspects of daily interaction in professional settings and just everywhere in general. So, for example, we have hiring, promotions, team dynamics, and bias can unintentionally reinforce inequality and discrimination. So, it's important that we recognize these biases to avoid instilling like instilling environments and atmospheres in the workplace or in just any organization. And so we understand our processes and make and decision making so we can foster a more inclusive environment where everyone thrives. So other forms of bias, this is confirmation bias when you're seeking out, intentionally seeking out, favoring, or recalling information that supports what you already believe in. There's attribution bias, which is assuming one's actions are connected to unrelated characteristics. So let's say a coworker often comes in late, you might think they're lazy or they don't have good time management, but in reality, they might just rely on public transportation, and that's unreliable. And there's affinity bias, which is gravitating towards those who share similar interests or backgrounds with you, which we all do for the most part. And yeah.
Implicit bias and action. So, common biases usually pertain to racial, gender, age, ability, and cultural. In social settings, feeling uneasy or wanting to distance yourself when you're around a group of young Black or Latino men, even if they're simply talking or laughing with each other, not causing anyone harm. Gender bias, an example of this is in a group discussion, a woman shares a great idea. However, the group's attention is more focused on the suggestions made by male participants, or her idea isn't given the same consideration and is overlooked. And an example for age biases in employment is an employer may assume that an older candidate is less tech savvy or resistant to change. Next slide, please. Um, in healthcare, physicians may implicitly believe that Black women feel less pain, leading them to not take their pain complaints seriously. This contributes to disparities Black women face in receiving medical help. And then also in law enforcement, police may implicitly associate Black and brown people with violence and criminality, causing them to question them more, use unnecessary force, or pull them over for things they might not, pull white people over for.
So we're gonna play a Kahoot. Give me 3 seconds. Yes, you don't have to put it up. So basically, I want us to take like the implicit association test. I don't know if y'all have seen it online, but like we don't have time to do it. It's like 20, 30 minutes. So for this Kahoot, it's gonna be 10 questions. Basically, I'm gonna have a word up, you're gonna see on your screen, and then you'll have to pick from like a race or gender or like social like class of like the first thing you associate that word with. So just to like really see like what you might test. And you have 5 seconds to do it. So I'm gonna give you the code. I won't display the answers up here because I think that's kind of crazy. So we'll just, okay. If y'all can open the Kahoot.it, because I want everyone to be on this, please. I'll give you the code once it loads. Okay, so the code is 5373. I'm gonna write it. Let me write it. Oh, actually, yeah, sorry, my fault. That's my fault. Okay, let me just assume everyone has open. 537-3213. 3213. I think we'll be fine. Yeah, you're good. Thank you. If you need it again, let me know. See, I won't be able to see your answers either, so put your thing. Yeah. But you don't have to put your own name either. Yes. Oh, you need it again? 537-3213. So yeah, there's gonna be like positive and negative words, and then kind of like picking the first thing that comes to your mind when you see it. There'll be you have 5 seconds to do it, so make sure you get it at. And also, you need it? 537-3213. And I also recommend taking the actual test after this because it can tell you a little bit more about yourself than like a Kahoot can, but this is a good start. Got a lot of people in here, okay.
27, 28. Is everyone on? Do you need it again? It's okay if you do. Yeah. 537 3213. Everyone good? Good. Okay. There's no winner. Well, there'll be a top three, but just cause. All right, we're gonna start. So 10 questions, 5 seconds to answer, and you'll see the. Oh, let me make sure you can see it. Okay, we're gonna start. We can't say who. I won't show anyone anything. Just take this. Thank you. Huh? Oh, sorry. We already started it. 537. You can still join. Yeah, join it right now, and I'll add it. 537. You can still join. Yeah, sorry. 537 3213. So that was the first one. Correct. Oh, they're all correct. They're all correct, by the way. Not like there's like a right answer. It's just all correct. I'm so okay. Are you guys on? Okay. All right. Next one. Okay, next one. 5 seconds. Okay, next one. Stop trying to be woke. Be for real also. Don't just say what you think. Like, first thing that comes to your head, literally, just press it. I promise you guys it's for a good reason. Okay. Next question. Okay, last question. Okay, so is there? Yeah, that's it. Adana actually won. You were the first. Well, it was everyone had 0 points, but hers was at the top, so I think she was doing the fastest. But I'm not gonna show the answers or whatever, but just for y'all to know what you guys picked, that's for yourself to internalize. Okay, next one. Huh? Just like to know. Okay, now we're gonna talk about it in small groups. Okay. So this is the first situation we're gonna answer these questions. If you could just, I'm gonna have y'all like turn, like this side, turn, talk to people behind you. Y'all talk behind you, and then you guys talk to people behind you, like as a group. So this is the first situation. A teacher unknowingly calls on male students more than female students during class discussions, even though the class is evenly split. They later noticed that male students seem more confident and vocal in answering questions, while female students appear more passive. How might stereotypes about gender influence how teachers perceive students' abilities or potential? And how can teachers create a more equitable learning environment? So have some conversation.
What's up? How you? Oh wait. So how might stereotypes about gender? I guess thinking that men are more wogs and smarter. It's a negative. Yeah. Mhm. What stereotypes do you think they feel? They're not investing time into expertise. But also just being aware first.
Yeah. Need as much as, let's say, black students.
Putting more time into
like reaching the same goal.
But I don't even think she needs to do one-on-one because I think like the male students are already on them. So I think just being aware, like, oh, maybe I'm not being as equal, and then just calling them. Yeah,
That doesn't mean
encourage
stop.
Okay, you're so right. You're so right. Not for real. That's so true. That's actually my fault. Damn. See, you don't have them. You don't have them. I
It's just like turning on better 24. Right? Yeah. I can be like a counter, but that's
That's fair. That's fair. I love women though. I love those. It's like them dry. Like every time
I never heard it. I see something wrong. It's just like not gonna see it until like the last day of class.
it was always like she be giggling at her draws when they be making one jug. Not literally. Stop.
They were always pregnant.
That's so true.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is actually so true. How long should we keep this on? Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're gonna wrap up. Anyone want to share anything they talked about? I know y'all had some great conversation.
I said that a perfect way to like kind of try to fix this is to have teachers take this type of training so that they can have their implicit biases be something that they're conscious of.
I like that. Anyone else? So you want to use that microphone? Yeah.
I know in a lot of STEM classes, the teachers and TAs can all be men. And so reaching out to female individuals who are in those fields to try to get more diversity at like the front of the classroom.
That's a good idea. Oh, Angel.
I'd also say just like keeping track. I know it sounds like weird to like look and see like maybe like count, but it's better to like just like forget about it and assume that there's a diverse like background of people in your class. And something that I thought about was generally computer science classes. I've seen on the media that there might be less women in that class, and I've heard that they don't feel like their voice is held to the same degree. And I think that could be solved if professors explicitly and on purpose kind of took a look. Oh, there are only 5 women in this class. what can we do to uplift those voices, and how can we fix that as well?
That's a good idea. Adana?
Okay. Sorry. We we were talking about how the belief of like imposter syndrome is easy to have when you look around your major and nobody looks like you. And even if a teacher isn't treating you that way, it's easy to kind of embody this insecurity, and then that will affect your performance.
That's very true. Ishan?
Yeah, I was also saying like I've been sitting in like a lot of different CS classes lately because of my minor. And I know nothing, like I have no idea what's going on, but I still feel like I get taken more seriously than my friend who's a CS major. And yeah, she's a girl. So like it's kind of like sad to see that. Like I feel like the TAs pay more attention to me and they turn to me to answer questions, even though I'm sitting there clueless and it's like really visible on my face.
Maya?
Oh, sorry, I was struggling for a second. I think a point that we were talking about was keeping it about the education, like keeping track, but keeping track of who's participating, who's not participating. There's also different kinds of learners in the classroom. I personally, I take a variety of different classes just due to my major. So in the more STEMmy ones, I tend to be quieter, and I'm thankfully have really good professors who picked up on that fact. And I noticed that in the smaller classrooms, teachers tend to be a lot more observant and they connect more a lot with their students. So when just talking about solutions, I personally don't want to be like treated differently because I'm a girl, or even given more opportunities to participate because I'm a girl or something like that, if that makes sense. But if I'm in a classroom and I'm quiet and I'm struggling on an assignment, especially if it's a smaller classroom, my professors are really quick to notice those things. Or I also had I don't know how many people know this about me, but I was in 2 different school systems when I was younger. So went to the American education system while I was also in the Russian education system. And the teacher, for my Russian teacher, she had a very small class, but if guys and girls were treated the exact same. So if she noticed that you weren't participating as much or you weren't talking as much in class, like it was kind of brutal what she did. She would single you out low key and be like, cater the lesson to you a little bit, try and identify why you're not participating, and identify, is it because you don't understand the material? Did you not do the reading, not the homework? Like, what is it? And then if you didn't do the homework, she would scold you just as much as she would the next guy. But if it was because you didn't understand something, she would stop the lesson just to explain things to you to make sure you understood before moving on. And that was something I really appreciated. But that wasn't something I got when I went into high school, for instance. So that's my babble, but yeah.
Julia? Can you leave the microphone right behind you for Julia? And this will be the last comment.
I think that a situation like this just shows that statements like "I don't see color, I don't see gender" actually are harmful, because like the whole point of it, implicit bias, is that you don't know that you like see color or gender, and so like this teacher probably doesn't even know that they like will lean towards the male students, so they would say like, "Oh, no, I don't pay attention to that. Like I don't like, why would I ever discriminate based on gender?" While meanwhile you actually do. So like it's really important to be able to identify that like saying "I don't see color, I don't see gender" can be more harmful, because it could be helpful to actually, call on people based on their gender to try and uplift the female students more.
Yeah, this goes back to Charlie's point, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of what the biases they may have. So if teachers were given these trainings, teachers, all types of people in leadership, then they could definitely show these practices better in class. So we have one more scenario. Go to the next one.
Yeah, this is another example, another scenario for everybody to try out. At a social event, a group of mostly white friends are talking and laughing. A black person enters the group and the dynamic shifts immediately. The conversation becomes less animated and more formal, as if the group members feel self-conscious. So I guess take a moment. Do we want to have like a breakout for this?
Yeah, same thing.
yeah, so like same thing. We're having another breakout. So here are some questions to think about as you ponder this situation. How can implicit bias affect social interactions in racially mixed groups? Why might people feel more comfortable or act differently around individuals from different racial backgrounds? And how can we be more inclusive in scenarios like this? Discuss.
Multicultural college high school, but like even in high school, like it was very like I went to high school it was like 10% white and it was like me and my friends like the not people.
The same. Yeah.
Like
You're the same.
but like you would almost have like it's just supposed to
They're like,
be
wait, but you, so.
okay, tell me that they don't know or you might ignore everything else, but it's just like the color of your skin or like whatever appearance. It's just here.
Everywhere.
And it's like again, it's just like not like it's just
It's like that initial. Yes. That's actually crazy though. Like that's. Like coming here with yeah. Like obviously when you like yeah. Just that initial like
people just like said words again, you want people, 8 million people as well, they're all not gonna look at you. Like it's also like it's tough to like it's really annoying when your person's like you can't hang out with them. Like no one's gonna do that unless they're a jerk. And it's like you really see him and then he's just like out like just hang out along with and like it's it's like dude like come on like it's like really like it's I don't even, it's just like so obvious but it isn't. I know it's like very colorful, just be better like people, but it really isn't that simple. It's just like it's like oh you're smarter you're oh but I said it's like 5 hours this is like half an hour it's just like okay is there anything I can say to get you off my back
LeBron is I want to try like who's like tequila. Tequila.
Just like be aware of yourself.
Yeah, no, don't.
That was vodka.
All right, guys, we're gonna regroup. Does anyone want to share out what they talked about? Can I use that one? That microphone.
Is this on? Oh yeah. We kind of just talked about how some people like in these situations tend to kind of overcompensate, but then in doing so kind of make them feel alienated, which is also not good.
We definitely talked about that over here too. Anyone else? No? Oh, Julia. Do you want to? Yeah, get her.
Talked about how a lot of times people, which is like a totally natural and human thing to do, but people are kind of scared of things that will challenge your own like beliefs and culture and identity. And so when you see these like white friends see a black person enter their group, and I've noticed this a lot in my community where like people are a lot more racist and they were like, oh, well, we can't like joke around this person because they're gonna get offended. And it's like when people see someone else not reciprocate or not like receiving your jokes or like personality well, they kind of assume it's like, oh, we just come from different cultures and like maybe they get offended easily and stuff, when really you should kind of look inward and be like, well, maybe why is it hard for me to make friends who don't identify with the same race or like have the same type of background as me? And it's like it just kind of furthers like harmful dialogue around it.
Yeah, I kind of spoke about like something similar. Like I remember, so I'm international. So like when I came here, like when I was a freshman, like it would be so hard to like hang out with anyone who wasn't from India, simply because it was just like a huge cultural gap. Like there would just be references to like even something as simple as like childhood shows. Like we all grew up like in different like with like different backgrounds. So I feel like it just, and that kind of does foster hostility, because I would think like, oh, like all white people are rude just because like they don't laugh at my jokes. But it wasn't because they were rude. It was just because like I was saying something that was totally alien to them, and so were they. So yeah.
Anyone else want to share before we move on? No? Okay, you can go to the next one. Oh, more talking. So this is just for y'all to answer out. So think of a time you were aware of your own biases. What happened and how were you able to recognize it? Is anyone brave enough to share sometime when you were in the wrong? Take some time to think.
Yeah, maybe the time where you're aware of your own bias, what happened, how you were able to recognize it. I mean, I guess like personally, I was talking about just to them about like something that happened before, like when I was like a little kid, like. Well, okay, actually, I realized I kind of had a bias against boomers and like old people, like straight up, especially like due to all the boomer discourse and how like they've like ruined our generation with climate change. So honestly, like where I live, honestly, has a lot of old people. I'm not gonna say too many anymore. I'm just gonna say it has a lot of old people. They're actually pretty cool. But the whole thing is like I'd like see them and they'd actually be super nice. Like they'd wave to me, and like I was like, why are they waving at me? Like, what are they doing? And like over time, I was just like, oh my god, like I've let my like weird biases, like my like weird anti-boomer narratives get in the way of just like being friendly with people and having a conversation. Like all that was just because of this like subconscious, like, oh, they're like old people, like, but they're cool. So it's like another example we were just talking about in general is just there's so many times you'll like see a stranger and you'll be like, without even knowing anything about them, like, oh my god, like that person like looks so like such a jerk or something. Like they look so rude and stuck up. And then you have a convo with them and you're like, oh my god, like this person's like actually like pretty chill. Like wow, I don't know what I was talking about. So yeah, that's end of my spiel. Can you think of it? Huh?
Yeah, I just have one thing to add. There's something like I discovered, like it was also like something that affected me, but I think something that's super prevalent in like a lot of cultures is like knowing English as a sign of intelligence. Like if you know English and you're good at English, like you're instantly intelligent. So I would have this bias against like my own people where I'd be like, oh, if someone's struggling with English, or they might not be as intelligent. And I would kind of like, I wouldn't like act on it, but that was just something like a thought that I would harbor. But now that I've grown up and I've seen like my friends like back in India, like who are not so good at English, but like they're still doing great things. I think that's when I like observed and I recognized and I kind of worked on it, and I still am working on it.
Yeah, actually, oh my god, that reminds me, because like that is like a bias so many of us native English speakers have too, where like even if you like in your mind know that like you should have no reason to be biased against people, if you like you hear someone mispronounce one word, even though they've like put so much effort into like learning such a hard language, you'll like subconsciously be like, wow, like they're kind of dumb, or wow, like they don't respect our culture or something. When it's like it's one tiny mistake, and then because you don't address it and don't think about it enough, like suddenly that makes you feel like a certain way when they speak. That's like prevents you guys from connecting more. So it's just like it's like such a minor thing, but then those minor things just add up over time. So I feel like that's why it's so important to just recognize it. Also, can you think of a time you observed someone else's bias in action, positively or negatively? And how did it make you feel?
So this was a time actually, I guess it was observed bias against me. But when I was in a math class and I asked for help on a math question, and the teacher said, I don't understand what's so hard. Like this isn't a difficult concept, but other students were asking the same question. And like, yeah, she didn't say that. Not at UMass, but yeah.
This is on now. This has become a joke now between my hiring manager and I. But when I first started my internship last 2 summers ago now, I was, because I'm younger generation, OIM major. When I walked into the company, I think starting from the first day, I became the IT help desk. And kind of my whatchamacallit, I don't like department or quad area. And there were like, because I was 20 and young and just come out of like and still in college, my coworkers would constantly make like jokes and comments about how, oh, like you're Gen Z, you know everything about computers, and I don't. I actually break them more often than I fix them. And like I do know keyboard shortcuts, sure, but that's most of my tech skills come from my major and because I broke something. Not because I'm a tech whiz or anything. And it's still a joke to this day, but and I'm still the IT help desk majority of the time, but they also very quickly learned that I break a lot of the technology that I touch. So now it's just a joke at the company I work at.
Okay, so for me, in my major, I mean, at least in the classes I'm taking, I don't think there's a lot of like women, especially women that look like me. And apart from my lectures, I also do have a discussion in one of my poli-sci classes. And during the discussion, the TAs put us into groups, and I'm the only Black woman in my class, and there's only probably like 3 other girls in the class. So I was the only girl in my group. And we were tasked with kind of like a project sort of thing. And I want to say like within the first 5 minutes, it was a group of 3. So it was me and 2 other guys. Within the first 5 minutes, the guys like broke up the entire project and already started working on it and literally pretended like I wasn't there, like I didn't exist. And they went on and started doing it and putting it into like action. And like I had to like stop and tell them like, what made you like ignore me? Like what made you like ignore my existence? And like, why would you think that I wouldn't want to be involved just because I sat there and I was just kind of like taking in the information? It was literally only 5 minutes. And I was really disturbed. Like I ended up giving it to them, like in a good way. But I was just kind of like, don't ever do that again type of situation. Like never make those kind of assumptions. And I did express to them like I was really offended. But I ended up being the one who presented the project, and I did most of it by myself after that because they were like too ashamed to at that point. But I just thought it was just very interesting how like they kind of like took control, and like when I would try to like chime in and ask a question, they kind of like watered down the explanations for me. I noticed that like they were using like really intricate descriptions with one another, but when they were interacting with me, it's like they were kind of like breaking it down and like mansplaining it to me type. So I just thought that was like super interesting. Yeah, it's on.
One last thing that reminded me of something that I was actually like, telling a lot of people in the office today. I'm a tour guide, and 2 weeks ago I was giving a tour, and while I was walking, this like mom came up to me and she was like, "Oh, so where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from India," like I mentioned. And she was like, "Oh, so like has your English always been this good, or like did you just start speaking it when you came here?" And I was like, "Well, I grew up with like my parents speak English and like it's my second language." And she was so shocked at that, like she was taken aback. And she's like, "Oh, I didn't know like you guys knew how to speak English." And I'm like, all right. And like I had to tell her that like to enter the US you have to pass certain tests in order to get a student visa. And then she's just like, "Oh, so like you're telling me like you learned English in school?" I'm like, "Yes, I learned English in school at home. Like I grew up with both English and Hindi." So like just seeing that was like funny because I thought like in 2024 like people would have a better understanding that like people outside of America can speak English.
I've noticed recently whenever I'm talking or like the election season that passed, a lot of the reasoning for voting for a candidate on both sides, whether you voted third party, anything, I wasn't hearing a lot of fact. I was hearing just bias. And like, I think that's something that is very strong, and that's a place that we need to really be aware of our biases. And I was observing it in action where some of the reasoning just came from things that didn't have much to do with the concept at hand.
Notice. I was talking about this with my mentees actually this week with Bamie and Jill, but I moved from New Jersey when I was in 7th grade, and I moved from a town in a place I grew up with that had a lot of diversity in thought and opinion, race, ethnicity, economic status, to a very white and wealthy town where everyone's white, everyone's rich. I wrote my college essay about it because it was just a very like important experience, I think, for me. Seeing my friends like at the town I live now, just seeing how much like privilege they have, and they're just not aware of it at all. Coming from a place where like I had friends that didn't get meals on the table, sometimes didn't get dinner, where I did. So I think it's just really important, and it's taught me like if you have a platform of privilege, to use it, and to not obviously like to be aware and not like have bias against like anyone for any particular reason. So that's important to me.
Okay, I'm gonna skip to go back. Just answer the last question. What do you guys think you can do to make sure your biases don't affect your interactions? Because we're gonna talk about that in the next slide. Does anyone have any ideas before I give y'all some tips? Yeah. Speaking to a diverse group of people. Yeah.
Surrounding yourself like you go into events like I went to educational life, just kind of connecting that really like opened up my eyes to see everything that like the cultures are going through right now, and like
Yeah, just like building on what y'all just said, I feel like the biggest thing is just even knowing that you might be uncomfortable around certain people. Because like America's a like pretty segregated place often. Even if you're like exposed to so many groups, there could be another group you're just not familiar with. And it's just, I feel like it's a matter of just making an effort to have a conversation, like not doing what the guys in your group did, where instead of just like doing what they did, they could have just like started a basic conversation with you and like, yo, like, what do you think of this project? Like, what's your name? What's your major? Well, they probably knew your major, whatever. But like, yeah, I think so much of the root of this implicit bias, that people have, is just segregation, and just when you don't really know someone, you just make all these assumptions. But so I feel like
You can go to the next slide. So these are some ways to combat it. Bias interruption. So interrupting a bias when you notice it, calling someone out if they make a biased comment in meetings, speak up if an idea is overlooked due to biases. Individuating, basically seeing people as what they give you. Do not assume based off their looks, what they do, like things about them. Pay attention to them specifically and try not to stereotype them. Empathize and understand different perspectives. Put yourself in their shoes. Think about how they're feeling in these conversations. Try to think about people other than you who are different than you. And then contact, which, like we were saying, seek ways to get to know people from different social groups. Learn how to interact with people different than you. Immersing yourself in different cultures, talking to different people, not just sticking to the groups that you're always with. And then just a little survey at the end, just to make sure we're really learning. But that's it. So fill that out. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed.
I just put, can you do icebox?
Yeah. we'll just get to it. Is there any other business for committee of the whole? Okay. What business? Uh-huh. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it should be there.
All right. So hello, everyone. I will be presenting the optimized budget for the next fiscal year. They basically, yeah, I'll walk through it. I won't keep you guys too long. So currently, the agencies this year faced across the board cuts of 14.29% on average, and that was after line item cuts. And as you know, has been a lot of issues with this. We are working on reforming the process, but currently those reforms are going through right now. So in the budget process for this year, for fiscal year 26, budget cuts are anticipated to be to a similar degree. And in order for SGA to operate as usual, we need to ensure we have a sufficient budget so that all ESOs can be funded and function properly in the following year. And currently, because of last year's decision to cut hours and limit the budget, there have been a number of issues which have arisen with our allocations that are affecting our positions' efficiencies. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But
Okay, so the processes that we currently have right now, so agencies and RSOs, they go through Ways and Means voting. So what happens here is that the Ways and Means Committee basically reviews the budgets that the RSOs submit line item by line item, and then following this process, the Ways and Means Chair conducts across the board budget cuts, which all agencies and RSOs are subject to. And due to the SATF being a limited pool of money, all agencies and RSOs are subject to this process. And what SGA does, as per revision that was passed last year, SGA receives a separate distinction. So we're putting up a non-binding resolution which expresses to Ways and Means that what we believe our budget should be, and it should be agreed upon by all of you guys, entire Senate.
so me and Divine are presenting the fiscal year 26 budget through the Senate in order to have a more efficient and transparent process that will reduce our ending balance at the end of the year, resulting in more money being allocated to RSOs and HGs throughout the agency process. So we are following, as we tell all RSOs and agencies to do, we are only requesting for our necessary expenses. But as SGA is a separate body and does require SGA to be functioning for all ESOs to function, we do need these funds that I am about to present to you in order to keep SGA running next year. So we are only requesting for the base amount that we require, and this will guarantee proper functioning for the following year.
So starting with the executive payroll, as you can see, these are the positions, the cabinet positions. So like we kind of mentioned before, due to restricted hours, we have found that SGA has faced a lot of limitations that are affecting our efficiency. So therefore, the hours have been increased to their previous amount. So I can see the hours there. The conduct advisors, we believe that they are important because they're a very important resource for students. So we want to make sure that they are being paid. And the budget reviewers are also important and required. Oh, also another new position is the auditors. As you can see, auditors 1 and 2 are there. And this is a new process that we're starting this year, yearly auditing, but it is required. And it's important to ensure financial transparency. So that will be another position that we'll see yearly. And then also the undersecretaries, those are allocated depending on need. So if a secretary, for example, the Secretary of Sustainability, Carol, she was starting her sustainability coalition and she needed extra help, and that's why she hired an undersecretary. So that's basically allocated by demand. Next slide. And then these are the legislative positions. We have the RSO council presidents, which are required by the bylaws, and the chairs, which the hours have been increased, like I said before, and then also the budget reviewers, which are important and required, but they work for only 2 voting seasons. And then we have the conduct advisors, which are required. Oh, I'm sorry. And then we have the judiciary payroll. Those are the positions. They are required to be on staff in case any issues may arise. And then also election commissions. Those are the positions. Election commissioners, they work 2 voting seasons, 40 hours per season, and they are required for fair and equitable elections. Which brings us to our total, which, like I mentioned, is a little higher than before, just because we have finally included winter pay. But this is the standard, and like we said, these increased hours will hopefully help the SGA run more efficiently and properly, so we can in turn serve the student body.
And I also just want to emphasize that these hours have been the set hours for the SGA prior to this year, and have been the, other than the auditors, which is a new process, so we did add those 2, all of these positions have existed since I have been here and before I've been here, and they have all been at these hour allocations. And yeah, so we can. So non-payroll items. So for Multicultural Night. So basically, we faced an issue this year where Multicultural Night is a very expensive event, and we have held it yearly, and we're going to continue to hold it yearly. But as you'll see later, it takes away from the rest of our funding. So we are budgeting for it this year. And these prices are all taken from previous Multicultural Nights, as well as this Multicultural Night that will be happening next month. So hosts for a total cost of $300, DJ for $600, photo booth for $600-ish, videographer for $300, UMass catering, which takes up a bulk of the Multicultural Night, but it is required for a 5-hour event, as students will be there the entire time. We want to make sure student engagement is at the top of the priority list, so getting food there will increase engagement. EMS is required, and then UMPD security also required. Sound and lighting is required for our DJ as well, and that comes along with it, with the DJ invoice, and then a decorator, which we didn't unfortunately have the money to afford this year, but it has been done in previous years, so that is why I included it. And then some miscellaneous. So the photographer for $75 is for the website. That is how we all get headshots and group photographs to update the website, which is done yearly and is always paid for. Printer lease, also always done. We have been paying for the printer in our office, and it is, questions will be at the end. And the printer lease is something that is taken out of account, out of my control. It's taken out every year. Plan Bs. So we have the subject chair set up a Plan B vending machine, but unfortunately, due to the budget cuts we received, we were not able to fund it this year, and that means students were not able to access the the Plan B vending machine this year. So we put money in the budget at least to stock it for a little bit. So that is 60 packs of Plan Bs, 30 per semester. Just especially as the elections are coming, the elections that happened, and the threats to women's rights and reproductive rights, we wanted to make sure that that was funded to promote SGA's, accessibility and initiatives. But Bike Co-op prepares Bike Co-op Student Fund. So this is something that has been funded by the SGA in the past. Again, was not funded for this year because of the budget cuts. But we had a request from the co-op that they needed these funds to ensure that the students who are receiving these bikes can use the bikes throughout the entire year. They will not break down, and they will be able to afford to be fixed if any accidents may happen. And a lot of students require these bikes in order to transport themselves around campus, around Amherst. And there's a lot of low-income students who can't afford a car or parking spots or something like that. So these are very essential. And then early move-in is for the leadership retreat. This is done every year, as the leadership retreat is the year before, and we conduct the leadership retreat in order to prepare student leaders to address all the issues and get up and running as soon as the semester starts. But for students that live in the dorms, it does, unfortunately, and I mixed those two up, sorry, 19 students, $60 each. But yeah, if they have to move into the dorms early, they require this fee. And then the discretionary fund, again, something that has always been a part of the SGA budget, and they actually raised it this year. So we are bringing it back down to 20,000, plus a supply closet discretionary fund, as the supply closet is getting reworked and the reforms are going through. So we are anticipating a cost for that, but we don't know how much yet. But as I said, the discretionary fund is used to fund things, like Multicultural Night, but Multicultural Night did take up almost the entirety of what we had left for the discretionary fund. So that is why we reallocated it. And we want to use the discretionary fund to fund events that may happen, to address events that pop up during the semester and allow for the next administration to address any concerns of the students that arise, such as maybe hosting conversations about protests that happened last year. That could have been something that they use the discretionary fund for, to help make students feel more comfortable and address issues that arise in that year. And then that brings the total budget to the number you see there. And that is a little bit higher than it was this year, as we already discussed, but it is lower than the amount they initially requested last year, because we wanted to keep it as low as possible to ensure that as much funding can go to agencies and RSOs. So we kept it to only the things we saw as necessary. And as we said, it is less than the SGA had requested last year. Yeah, you can move to the next slide.
So what you'll be voting on, so your support for this budget means a formal recommendation to the Ways and Means Committee to place this allocation directly into the S1. We just want to reiterate that we are only requesting what we need to operate, and especially so we can keep as much money in the SATF as possible. And we believe that it is our responsibility to set a precedent to not overinflate our budgets, especially so that other RSOs and agencies don't overinflate their budgets. And we believe that every single role in the SGA is important and vital. And to ensure that we are functioning properly, we need to make sure our budget reflects this, as other organizations on campus depend on SGA.
Okay, and then I'm just going to quickly explain what a non-binding resolution is. This will be going up later. So a non-binding resolution will signify that the entire Senate agrees that this is the amount that SGA should receive next year as the fiscal year 26 operating budget. But I want to iterate that it is not this is a non-binding resolution. This does not force this budget to be that amount, but it is a statement from the Senate that this is the amount that we need and the amount that they think that SGA should be funded for next year. And additionally, we're doing this as a resolution because it allows for amendments in case anyone wants to bring up things they believe should be added and are required for next year, or in any case, maybe things that they don't see as necessary. So now, questions.
Could you go back to the executive payroll slide, please? So, because I was looking at last year's payroll, and I noticed that at least just looking at the top, the president and vice president getting a pay raise, and I know we're a little bit in debt right now. So I was wondering why we're giving out raises.
I just want to say something real quick. So as I said, last year they cut the budget, and we have faced issues with these. There's been many people, and I mean many people, who have been working over hours and have came to me and discussed this. So it's kind of limiting the efficiency of the organization and what the SGA leaders can do. Prior to this year, those were the hours that they have been paid for the previous, since before I got here. These have been the regularly allocated hours.
Point of information, we're, our hours actually weren't cut by the previous administration, so we're actually currently getting 20 hours. So that's been consistent every single year.
That is because winter pay is included, correct? That is why it is raised. Because last year it was not included in the budget, and last year the SJ had to use the discretionary fund to pay every officer. So instead of just inflating their discretionary fund, we just put it in the proper place where it should have been last year.
Essentially, basically, normally what had happened in the past up until about last year, I believe it was, is winter pay and summer pay would be allocated. However, it was not allocated the past 2 years for whatever reason. So we ended up having to do a resolution at the last Senate meeting last year in order to, approve discretionary funds to pay for hours. And there's actually going to be a resolution at the final Senate meeting of this semester to fund winter hours for this year. However, starting next year, we won't have to do that anymore because it's already going to be allocated as part of the hours, and therefore it will already be done. We won't have to do a separate resolution every semester to get that through.
I actually had a quick question regarding the early move-in and then the EMS costs on the slides presented for supplemental information. The early move-in line item is not visible on the slides. I don't know if that's just like.
So I think the one that was sent to you, there was a little bit of issue sending it over. So this one is the most up-to-date one, and there was a little bit of an issue when it was sending, but the early move-in is included in the final price.
So
that's right, and it's $60 for 19 people.
So the cost for that and on this presentation are the same.
Are you talking about the PDF in the supplemental material folder? Yeah, it's likely that the presentation was changed after it was downloaded into a PDF, so I can update that right now for the record.
Thank you, Michael.
I think what he's confused about is there was an error on the chart. It looks like I think it was supposed to say $60 and 19 people, but the 19 is in the unit cost and the 60. Yeah, so I think it was just an error.
Just a point of personal privilege. Can I see the legislative payroll?
Guys, we don't need to use parliamentary points.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
committee of the whole.
Oops.
You skip past it.
Yeah.
Again.
Sorry,
You're good. One more.
Yeah, there. Hold on. Budget reviewer is the Ways and Means Senators, yes. And then the other question I had is because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, last year we also, I don't know if we used the discretionary fund for this. I was a naive little senator, but we did also allocate hours to those putting in the allocations last year for the Ways and Means process, given our little debacle on Campus Pulse and how that was done in 48 hours because we had members on the committee pulling all-nighters, and that's not typical. Is that when you're budgeting for payroll for these budget reviewers, are those is that allocations that the Ways and Means Senators would be doing, is that included in there or no?
So the hours for the budget reviewers are for 2 weeks in the fall semester and
Okay.
10 weeks in the spring semester for 10 hours a week as the base level of pay for Ways and Means Senators.
Oh, 2 weeks in the fall?
Yes, because this year, since Thanksgiving falls late, you only have 7 days, but next year Thanksgiving will move and you have 2 weeks, just as I had 2 weeks when I was on the Ways and Means committee.
Yeah. Wait, and what did you say was the amount of time in the spring semester?
10 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question specifically about just a little bit more clarification on what it is the Senate would be recommending. If it would be recommending the Ways and Means Committee to approve the budget pre-cuts, across the board cuts, or if it would be to recommend to the Ways and Means Committee to approve the budget post across the board cuts.
So basically, this non-binding resolution will be a suggestion to the Ways and Means Chair when they are making the S1 to set the SGA budget at this amount. So the SGA budget will still be voted on in Ways and Means as it was last year, but last year the Ways and Means Chair accepted the SGA's non-binding resolution and set the SGA budget. So that would basically what you would be putting forward if you voted yes.
So we're asking Ways and Means to not cut the SGA budget when doing across the board cuts?
So we are suggesting that the SGA operating budget stays at the 366,000 number, and that is the amount that SGA needs to be paid for next year. So when the Ways and Means Chair is doing the S1, they can accept the non-binding resolution and set the SGA budget at that.
To add on to that as well, so the motion that allowed this to change last year was 2023 S15, and that motion basically said that the SGA, it needs to not go through the agency process, because if the SGA gets drastic cuts, then the SGA cannot serve every single agency, every single RSO. The general bylaws require us to pay our positions. It lists out the executive branch, legislative, and if we receive those cuts, we are violating our own bylaws.
I do want to emphasize as well that if we were to subject our own budget to the cuts, we would not be able to make the reforms that are necessary in order to provide very much needed relief to our RSOs and agencies, as we would not be able to pay our officers who do a lot of hard work in order to address these situations. We would not be able to pay them to do that work, which would greatly inhibit our ability to resolve the situation and make sure that we can fund all of our groups.
And I'm broke, y'all. So like, I know I won't be working for free. And like, I hope whoever is in SGA leadership next year wouldn't want to work for free either.
Can I just provide a point of information? So what this would do is like the way this would show up on the S1 when I am doing our allocation process is it would show up as a line item on our S1, just the same way as DIA shows up and emergency fund shows up. So they would be asking me to allocate money to the SGA just like I would if I was trying to fund DIA and equity, but they're specifically asking me to allocate funds for this specific amount. And so, as they said earlier, the previous chair last year did do this, and they're asking for a similar process to be conducted this year. I don't know if that helped clarify what that would look like.
Hello. Oh, you can hear me. Perfect. I was just wondering, you mentioned that this was slightly higher than last year's budget. I just want to know, are you able to disclose last year's like final budget total, whatever that was?
Yeah, so last year's budget was 291,000, and that was for minimum payroll and a discretionary fund. And as I said, we upped the payroll back to normal, put in winter pay, and budgeted for multicultural night, but then lowered the discretionary fund.
I do want to note too that last year's hours were reduced based on this thing called the hour utilization rate, where they measured the rate of last year's cabinet and chairs and how many of their hours they used. Now, this year we have had a group of cabinet and chairs that has been not only meeting their hours, but has actually not had enough hours allocated for them to be able to do the work that they need to do. And we didn't think that it was fair based off just because again, in this situation, you could take one person, say, that's in a certain position. Maybe this one person, doesn't like to do their full job, isn't really that committed. You could then say, okay, well, now we're going to cut the position for years to come because this one officer didn't do their job. So essentially, this administration has been very, very strong in making sure that everyone uses all of their hours. And we've also actually found a lot of cabinet members are unable to do everything they would want to do because of this. Because again, you already think about it, like Senate usually takes 3 hours out of their hours for the week. You know, usually they have at least 2 office hours. So that gets them down a bit. So essentially what this would be doing, because on average, I think most positions are going up about 3 hours, which is where they were every year prior to this year. It'll be compensating for Senate and allowing them to do 12 additional hours of work relevant to their position. Whereas right now, they're only able to do, you know, if you subtract Senate and if you subtract office hours, they're only able to do like 7 to 9 if you work during office hours. But essentially, though, this is more so to make sure that everyone can do their duties effectively and serve the student body, because right now we're finding that our officers are having a hard time getting everything they need to get done. And we actually have a lot of officers who are working unpaid hours, which we do not request of anybody. We don't force anybody to do that. We don't encourage people to do that. But if people choose to do that, that's their prerogative. And we do have a lot of people that we have noticed are doing that, hence why we decided to do the increase.
I also just want to emphasize, before they cut the budget to $291,000, they requested $468,000. So, and that was with I don't agree with that amount, but that was with everything that they wanted to fund. So different events and things like that, but we're trying to keep it as small as possible. So we are only doing multicultural night and then discretionary fund events, which are going to be very limited and small. Okay, thank you guys.
Is there any other business for committee of the whole? The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole. Senator Wu. It has been moved and seconded. A motion to adjourn the committee of the whole. All those in favor of adjourning committee of the whole, please signify with an aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. All right, the Senate will now be in order, and the committee of the whole previously called into session stands adjourned. The Senate will continue considering the remainder of the agenda. The Senate will stand in a brief 5-minute recess. Yeah. Senator Kim.
Motion to suspend the rules to consider a main motion not previously on the agenda.
The chair will now read the entirety of the motion. Oh. And the motion will be presented on the screen. Do you want to scroll on? Whereas the University of Massachusetts Amherst football team will be competing against the University of Georgia on November 23rd at 12:45 p.m. And whereas a victory by the UMass Minutemen over a highly ranked opponent such as the University of Georgia would be a historic and significant event for the university community. And whereas the excitement and celebration following such a potential upset would contribute greatly to school spirit and unity among students, faculty, and staff. And whereas this event would draw national attention to UMass Amherst, further enhancing the university's reputation and highlighting the dedication and talent of our student athletes. And whereas the morale and collective enthusiasm of the university community are pivotal in fostering an environment where students and staff feel connected and proud to be part of UMass Amherst. And whereas granting a day off following such a significant event would demonstrate the administration's support for student activities and achievements. And whereas previous initiatives endorsed by the Student Government Association have successfully promoted student welfare and enhanced the university experience. And whereas the safety and well-being of students are paramount, and providing a day off ensures the celebrations can occur responsibly and without academic pressure. And whereas the support of the Student Government Association is crucial in conveying the importance of this initiative and the university administration, this initiative to the university administration. Therefore, be it resolved, the Student Government Association of the University of Massachusetts Amherst requests that all classes and academic activities scheduled for Monday, November 25th, 2024 be suspended to allow the university community to celebrate the potential historic victory of the UMass Minutemen football team. Sponsored by Senator Kim, Secretary Goodchild, Vice President Leone. The chair will now entertain a second for the motion. All right. Reminder, this is, the Senate is now voting on whether or not to put this motion onto the agenda. All right. All those in favor of placing this motion onto the agenda, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. All right. The motion to suspend the rules to consider a motion not previously on the agenda passes, is adopted. Accordingly, the motion will be placed last on the agenda and is assigned the motion number Resolution 8. Senator Kim.
Move to suspend the rules to rearrange the order of the agenda to consider Resolution 8 as the next order of business. Second.
Okay, a second has been received. Been moved and seconded to suspend the rules to rearrange the order of the agenda to place Resolution 8 as the Senate's next order of business. All those in favor of adopting the motion, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. All right, the motion is adopted. The sponsorship is now recognized to make a factual description.
All right, let's get some energy in here. How are we all doing? Good, 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 good. Woo! UMass football. Woo! Hopefully, we'll see. Okay, so flagship. Woo! And if we win, and the UMass band is at the Macy's Day Parade, that's a whole lot of advertising for this school. So let's hope we win. And so basically, the inspiration for this came at their leadership retreat at the beginning of the year. We invited the administration to come, and so Chancellor Reyes actually sat next to me at the table, and we discussed the football team and how has been that good, and how unfortunately Coach Don Brown is no longer employed by the University of Massachusetts Amherst. But he did tell me that I asked him, if we were to win, would you cancel classes? Because Georgia won the national championship in 2021 or 2, my freshman year, I think they did it. I could be wrong. Someone wants to confirm that. But they won a couple years ago. They've been ranked. They were really good. They only lost to Alabama a couple times in a row. And so Reyes told me if we pass a resolution, he'll consider it. So here we are. And basically, me and Charlie were hanging out Saturday night.
and we were like talking about UMass football, and we wrote this. So yeah, questions.
Senator Wu.
Is the canceling of classes conditional upon a victory against Georgia?
Yeah. So obviously, whatever your own personal opinions are, I think there's a very good chance we win. But a lot of people, factually might disagree with that. So we think that this is just like a fun motion, and yes, it is conditional on the fact that we secure the dub.
Senator Nevins.
In the small chance that we lose, can we amend this so that we can have a day of mourning afterwards?
In order.
I mean, the Senate is empowered to amend this any way they see fit. So if Senate wants to make an amendment, be my guest.
President Humphries.
I have a bit of a two-parter here. The first part is, do you believe that this is still possible without the leadership of our former revered head coach, John Brown, with his excellent less than 20% win percentage? Or the second question is, would the sponsors be open to amending this to say that we should get classes off if UMass scores more than 3 points?
Again, the Senate has the power to amend this any way they would potentially see fit. What was the first part of your question, actually?
I said, do you think that this is still possible without the leadership of our revered head coach, Don Brown, and his impressive 6-28 record?
First, I want to say is Don Brown was the football coach from 2004 to 2008. Those are the 5 winningest years in UMass football history. So can we get a round of applause and give him, thank you for those 5 years back 20 years ago. Woo! However, to answer that, I think the football team is going to be even more pumped up to do this historic record upset. So I would say they're going to have more inspiration to do this.
Senator. Motions to amend are only in order after the motion is called and seconded. Senator Wu.
Okay, on a serious note, has there been any consultation with admin or faculty as to whether or not this would disturb their learning, their teaching plans? I'm just curious.
I mean, Chancellor Reyes told me at the retreat that if we pass a resolution, he'll consider it. So I would say Reyes has been consulted.
I just want to provide a point of clarification for the motion. Just to clarify, after a second for this resolution is entertained, after that is when, and before debate, that is when a motion to amend can be moved. Or additionally, a motion to amend can be moved during debate. That is the purpose of debate. Senator Wu.
Our point of, I guess, information in this situation and
parliamentary inquiry.
Something like that, yeah. I'd just like to point out that the game is on Saturday, and therefore we would have Sunday to celebrate.
I mean, while this is kind of true, it would be a historic upset if UMass were to beat Georgia. So it would make sense to give us Monday off to ensure that the celebration could last longer. It would unite the community because people would see that this motion was passed, and if we won, it would show that the SGA did something for the students. And it would just overall show our commitment to athletics and our commitment to a better football program.
And also to add on to that, we essentially, actually forget it.
President Humphries.
I promise was the last time I talked, but I would say point of personal privilege. I believe that the Senate should hold a moment of silence for Don Brown.
I'm gonna rule that out of order. Any other factual questions for the sponsorship? Yes, Senator Mello.
I noticed the ESPN's Football Power Index gave Georgia a 99% chance of beating UMass Saturday. So I guess I'm curious about what you would say your Your percent chances? Like, what are you thinking?
So ESPN is owned by Disney, so they're fake news. So therefore, the Dale Leone prediction says UMass football has a 100% chance to win.
Yeah, that's fake news. I've actually I have outside sources telling me that that's inaccurate information. I think we have about a 75% chance to win with the training programs they've been going through. This will motivate them. I think this motion will be the key to a UMass victory, which is why we should pass it. All of us in this room want UMass to win, so we should be motivating our athletes with this motion.
Senator Severio. We'll be doing 2 more factual questions.
Do you think that amending the motion to also cancel class if they lose would affect the motivation aspect to it and kind of defeat the purpose?
I'm not sure, but I do know that Senate is empowered to make amendments that they see fit.
Retweet.
And this is the last question. Senator Rue.
Yeah, I guess it was more of like an emotion to make a certain amendment, but kind of similar to the idea that this great senator had. Would it also be possible to amend it to say we get a day off if Georgia wins due to the substantial Georgian transplant community in UMass? So for all the people who are from Georgia in this school who are still Georgia fans, they would kind of have this as like a sacred holiday. This is almost like a religion for them. So if Georgia does win, I feel like it would kind of be discrimination against them to not allow them to celebrate in peace.
Like Vice President Leone said, the Senate's more than empowered to amend this however they feel fit. I'm not gonna, and neither is he. We're not gonna get in the way of that. We want you guys to do what you see fit. But so yeah, I mean,
Thank you. I yield my time.
I think even like a point that Charlie made is that like even if you were to, yeah, I'll just say Senate. If Senate feels that they want to do that, they can.
That concludes the factual description. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
This time the chair will entertain any motions to amend unless the Senate wishes to do that during debate.
I would like to add a motion to amend.
Senator Nevins.
I'd like to add a whereas statement as to if or potentially when we win, Chancellor Reyes has to sing the national anthem at the next game.
Okay. So Senator Nevins moves to amend the motion to include a new whereas statement. Oh, actually. New whereas statement or new resolving clause?
New resolving clause.
Does the senator have a draft of the language already, or are we going to do this right here?
Be it further resolved, the Student Government Association of the University of Mass, whatever that formal title is, requests that Chancellor Reyes be empowered to perform the national anthem at the following football game in the event of a victory.
The following football game might be the home opener next year, but Reyes could do it then.
can I ask a question, Michael?
Does the sponsor of the amendment approve of the language?
Yeah.
Sponsor the amendment.
Oh, my fault. I mean, I do too, but.
Yes.
Is there a second for the motion? The sponsor can yield for questions about the amendment.
Anybody got questions?
I have one.
Yes,
So
Secretary Goodchild.
this just says the following football game. So let's say the following football game was like away. Do we want Chancellor Reyes to travel all the way? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Does the senator withdraw their initial amendment to propose the new amendment?
No.
Okay, so the amendment will stand as it's written currently.
Point of information.
President Humphries.
All right, guys. It's been funny. It's been fun, but this is getting a little bit silly and we have business to do. So I'd recommend, it's a recommendation. I can't force it, but I'd recommend that after this amendment is voted on, we rein this in, vote on the motion, and move on to more serious business. Not to be that guy. It was funny, but I feel like this is getting a little overboard.
Any further points or questions for the sponsor of the amendment? Seeing none, does there exist a need for debate on the amendment? No indication of a need for debate. The amendment is called and the question is on the adoption of the amendment. Be it further resolved, the Student Government Association of the University of Massachusetts Amherst requests that Chancellor Reyes be empowered to perform the national anthem at the following football game in the event of a victory. All those in favor of adopting the amendment, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. The ayes have it. The motion to amend is adopted. All right. Does there exist a need for debate on the resolution itself before the vote is called? All right. With no indication of a need for debate, the motion is called and the question is on the passage of Resolution 8, which currently does not have a long title. All those in favor of passing the resolution, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. The ayes have it. The resolution passes. The Senate will now consider Resolution 6, a resolution in support of the town of Amherst's stance against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, ICE. The chair will now read the entirety of the motion and request that no senator moves to suspend the rules. Resolution 6. Whereas the University of Massachusetts, UMass Amherst, is a public university committed to fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion within its community, and the Student Government Association is guided by its mission to advocate for and protect these values for all students. Whereas the town of Amherst has declared itself a sanctuary town, affirming its commitment to protecting all residents regardless of immigration status and ensuring the local resources are not used to enforce federal immigration laws. Whereas sanctuary policies are essential to fostering trust between communities and local governments, creating an environment where all residents feel safe to access public services and participate in civic life. Whereas U.S. immigration and customs enforcement engages in practices such as raids, detentions, and deportations that separate families, traumatize communities, and perpetuate fear, disproportionately affecting undocumented individuals and their loved ones. Whereas the SGA stands in solidarity with the town of Amherst's sanctuary policies and opposes the harmful impact of ICE's actions on families and the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the SGA Senate of UMass Amherst formally supports the town of Amherst's designation as a sanctuary town and commends its commitment to safeguarding the dignity and safety of all residents. Be it further resolved that the SGA condemns ICE's practices that harm families and disrupt the lives of undocumented individuals and their communities, and reaffirms its own commitment to creating an inclusive and supportive environment for undocumented students and their families. Sponsored by President Humphries, Vice President Leone, Secretary Goodchild, Chief of Staff Nassar, Senator Strong, Senator Bloom, and Chair Onyeka. The sponsorship is now recognized to make a factual description of the motion.
Hi, everybody. So first of all, I want to note that this was written. Michael, I think you wanted him to go to the actual motion. So this was created for two reasons. First of all, in response to a recent very disturbing incident in Northampton in which several Amherst residents were involved in a arrest and detention by Immigration Customs Enforcement, and which goes against Amherst's status as a sanctuary city. Some of you may have seen the town of Amherst did release a statement strongly condemning these actions. I think the second part to this is obviously, as you are all aware, we have an administration coming in that is promising the largest deportations in U.S. history. This is also an administration that enacted a family separation policy
The
where
chair will be
families
briefly yielded to Associate Speaker Arnold.
where where families where families were being separated from each other, children being taken away from their mothers and fathers. Additionally, there has been just numerous reports of really terrible conditions at these detention centers. And it is very concerning to me and to all of us who are sponsoring this motion that members of our community could be subjected to this treatment. I think it's important that we recognize everybody's humanity, especially seeing that many people who are refugees to this country are in very vulnerable situations themselves and are fleeing very dangerous situations. With that being said, I think that it is completely inhumane for really anybody to have to be subjected to family separations, to have to be subjected to these super inhumane treatments. And for that reason, we find it very disturbing that these ICE raids are happening, and we are very concerned about the policies in which the incoming Trump administration has promoted, where he has promised massive family separations. His new quote-unquote border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he will be deporting families. And this is somebody who is a huge proponent of the family separation the last time around, and they want to use taxpayer money, which means all of our money, to fund these operations, which are just completely inhumane. And I think seeing that there are inhumane policies of taking families apart, as well as terrible conditions at these facilities, we should strongly condemn ICE's practices, and we should defend members of our community, especially because this does impact likely some of our students. This impacts many of our community members. And I think as an SGA, we have the responsibility to take a strong stand for our community and to stand in solidarity with the town of Amherst, which did release a very strong and well-written statement defending their residents. And we too, as the UMass SGA, would like to take the same stand.
Also, I just want to give some examples of kind of or explanation of how ICE works. So ICE actually doesn't need probable cause in order to issue a detention on somebody. So that means that they'd be operating under reasonable suspicion instead of probable cause. Probable cause is extremely hinged on evidence, whereas reasonable suspicion is exactly what it sounds like. It has to do with suspicion, which can be very subjective, especially when you have someone in office who is very vocal about deportation, and he said he wants to deport 20 million, which putting a number on how many people you deport is already ridiculous to the fact, because then you're basically promising you have to fill up the number that you give, which means that it makes the processes for finding the people that you're going to deport less substantial and less based on evidence. And also, U.S. Representative Jim McGovern, U.S. Senators Warren and Markey, and Attorney General Healy have all pledged to stand up to the president's bullying and threats. Other cities and towns across the Commonwealth are leading the way and showing the rest of the United States that we will not be bullied. And this is just showing our support for the town of Amherst as a sanctuary city.
Both of them made great statements about what this is, what's going on around us. But I want us to kind of take the lens away and look at our community around us. We're at a university. We're here to learn. We're here to get our degrees, and then we are here to get the hell out. And that's what every student should be worrying about. The fact is, in order to be notified by ICE, you can fill out a form and say, XYZ, this person is an undocumented immigrant, they need to be removed from this country. And ICE will just show up and be like, hey, someone said that, you shouldn't be here. So we're here to figure something out. And it's something that students at this university shouldn't worry about. And that's what we're here to do, to protect our friends and fellow students. So I don't want you to think about this as, oh, we're fighting Trump, we're doing this, we're doing that. Yes, this is a part of that. But we're protecting our community. We're protecting our fellow students. We're allowing them to focus on their studies and not worry about, are they going to be able to be here tomorrow? Are they even going to be in the country to take that test that they've been putting off studying for? All I should be worrying about as a student is how much I can fail on my test to pass the class. I shouldn't be worrying about whether or not I'm going to get kicked out of this country forcibly. This is a university. We're students, and that's all we should be.
I just have one more thing to say. Also, the detainer form that Senator Nevins was talking about, they may request that local law enforcement hold an individual beyond the time that they may have been released, which is unconstitutional. You're not allowed to do that. So that's also another reason why we believe that this motion should be adopted.
Also want to note that many of the enforcement policies are so vague that it could lead to somebody being profiled and targeted based on the color of their skin, especially given many of the policies that Trump and other presidents, but especially incoming President Trump, has advocated for. And that vaguity really puts even legal US citizens at risk of being targeted in racial profiling incidents.
Can you guys hear me on this? Hello? I just want to explain these, like the resolve clauses, basically. So what we're saying is we support the town of Amherst's designation as sanctuary town and its commitment to safeguarding citizens. We're basically saying we support the statement that they did. And we're saying that we don't agree with practices that disrupt families, communities, and especially our students here at Amherst. And so I actually want to ask Speaker Flanagan if he could show us the Instagram post that was attached to this. And so basically, if people want to look here, this is what it means for the town of Amherst to be a sanctuary town. But according to their town bylaws, this is how they will essentially be a sanctuary. This is how they are essentially town by their bylaws. And this is basically them saying that they don't align with ICE and that they won't comply with ICE to the fullest extent of the law. So I think that's all we got. If anyone wants to add anything, feel free. If not, we're open to questions.
Sponsorship will yield for questions. Attorney General Dorbenga.
I guess if you want to be added as a sponsor, maybe just raise your hand, because I'm sure there's probably a lot.
And I wanted to add one more thing too. Colin and I definitely could have did an executive press release statement on this, but we felt that it was a lot more powerful if the entire Senate could get behind this.
Seeing the influx of sponsor interest, I just ask that you come up to the podium after Senate, and we'll add your names to the sponsorship before the resolution is engrossed if it's passed. Any factual questions? Senator Wu.
I have kind of a two-parter. You mentioned first and foremost that this was in response to the actions that occurred in Northampton, yes?
That's correct.
Beautiful. I just wanted to double check. I could have been going crazy. So the Daily Hampshire Gazette, which is a local town newspaper, rated for a left-center bias, more moderate. Maybe
Point
a
of
little
order,
left-leaning.
how is this a factual question?
Give me a second and let me get to there. All right.
Senator, is a question coming soon?
Yes. I'm just providing a little more background for those of you who may not have read the article, because this pertains to the background as to which this was written.
Point of order, overruled. You may continue. Overruled. Yep.
In that case, so the article from the Daily Hampshire Gazette speaks to the background. Like you said, that this is
sort of a response to the action that happened in Northampton. The man that was arrested in Northampton by ICE was unfortunately, word for word, a Brazilian man in Framingham who is also facing 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. The article continues to speak as to the man's reasoning for being here undocumented, which is that he is escaping federal criminal charges in Brazil. Were you perhaps aware of these actions of this gentleman who was detained by ICE when you wrote this, or is this sort of just in response to ICE being in Northampton?
I'd like to first note that the Be It Resolved clause does not say that. The Be It Resolved clause reads as follows. Be it further resolved that the SGA condemns ICE's practices that harm families and disrupt the lives of undocumented individuals and their communities, and reaffirms its own commitment to creating an inclusive and supportive environment for undocumented students and their families. So with that being said, yes, this was partially in response to the statement released by the town of Amherst, which was signed by the town administrator. It was signed by the superintendent of schools, the police chief. But secondly, if you could read this, this is also in response to what is happening across our nation. We have a president coming in who has threatened massive deportations, in his own words, the largest deportations in U.S. history. A president who last time he was in office put in a policy that said families can be separated from each other at the border. So, I have not read that article. I'm not going to go into the details of this particular case, but that's not what the Be It Resolved statement says. What the Be It Resolved statement says is we condemn the practices that ICE uses, and given everything that is happening across our nation and that has happened, I think that it is important that we take this stand.
I also want to say, I think it's dangerous to say that this motion was created based off of just one incident. This motion is just our reaffirmation of what the town of Amherst is doing in their own public statement. So what we're doing is we're just reaffirming a statement put out by the town that we also reside in, and also that's another one reason right there. Another one as to why we're adopting this motion.
Senator Wu for one follow-up, and then we'll go to Senator Silverio. Yes.
Thank
Senator
you.
Nevins.
It's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down, that the people who are being deported because they are criminals. The vast majority of people who are being deported because of extenuating circumstances and long processes. But I understand why you're bringing up those charges, but I also want you to look at the perspective of what we're doing here. We are essentially uniting ourselves with the town of Amherst, with which it is important we do business with. It is important that they understand our mission is unified with theirs, because we have lots of things we need to do with them. We need to solve the housing crisis with them, among many other things. But besides that, this is affirming to the student body that we are here as a governing body representing them to protect them. If you have criminal charges against you and you're a student here, when you apply, you have to say it. And I really, truly don't think that many students here, if there are any, have a rap sheet, if you will, of criminal charges against them. And I think that there is a maybe small and minute population, but there definitely is a population of students who see the rhetoric from the incoming administration and see what's happening in communities around us and are fearing for their lives. And that's something that no student should have to deal with. And I think that that's what this is about. I understand your concern, but it's simply not related to that. It is related to protecting the student body, making sure that they feel safe so that they can pursue what they're trying to pursue.
Senator Wu.
I would like to point out, Charlie, that unfortunately President Humphreys did say that this was in fact a response to the actions in Northampton. And I would also like to once again bring up the question, were you aware that this was the situation that you wrote this response to?
I'll issue a correction. This was in response to the incident this is in response to the town of Amherst's statement. This is in solidarity with the town of Amherst.
Yeah, me and Dale actually spent time writing this motion, and it was 110% inspired by supporting the town that we reside in, and also supporting equality in the university's mission.
I see this as kind of a domino effect. You know, the incoming administration, with their rhetoric and along with what is happening in the Valley, caused the town of Amherst to release a statement. That domino hit the town of Amherst, and the town of Amherst's domino hit us. Now, I'm sure they're correlated some way. This particular resolution, domino, if you will, has not touched whatever happened in Northampton. It's completely unrelated. This is specifically referencing the statement released by the town of Amherst that does not reference what happened in Northampton and is specifically stating that they are reaffirming that they are a sanctuary town and that they support undocumented migrants that are living in the community.
Constable here. 2 more factual questions. Senator Solario.
Am I able to respond as a future co-sponsor or not for now?
I would ask for you to not. Factual questions. Senator DeMarco.
Do you guys plan on providing in the future any resources for international students or students who, just as a little context, the current administration or the future administration, incoming administration, does plan on combating birthright citizenship, which could affect students who are born in the United States and have citizenship because of that. Do you plan on, which I guess I'm getting to the fact that a lot of students have birthright citizenship. Do you plan on providing any resources on campus, off campus for students who may be affected by an ICE presence and the incoming administration?
Absolutely. One of the things I'm going to direct my administration to do over the coming weeks is to prepare a statement about this and attach resources at the bottom to specifically help all students that, international students, students who are protected by the DACA, students who are migrants or immigrants to this country. And we are going to provide resources for those students to make sure, 1, that they can know their legal rights, and 2, that they can seek assistance in order to ensure that they will be protected here.
I think everything President Humphrey says is absolutely amazing and also true. I also would say that if anybody in this room, any senators have any ideas or ways to support these types of students, we're more than willing to receive help and collaborate on this. So I would very much urge anybody who has a passion on this to reach out to us and try to help.
Last question. Chair.
I wanted to add before we got to another question, as I kind of alluded to in my SAB report, University Relations, we're going to be working with them, especially come January, to make sure that resources are spread wide and across campus.
Last question, Chair Stamen.
Okay, I have a question, I think, for the sponsors and then also for Speaker Flanagan, if that's okay.
Yes.
Regarding supporting international students here on campus, could we actually reach out to the international student community and maybe host a safe space to speak with them about their concerns, not just regarding this, but I also think this is a community we have failed to engage as a SGA, and we are here to represent the undergraduate student body. So I think for a variety of reasons, this might be good, and it also may help brainstorm ideas regarding how we can support this community better given the upcoming administration. Is this something you're willing to do as sponsors and also SGA leadership?
Absolutely. And I encourage, if you have any contacts you'd like to send along or any ideas or information, I certainly encourage you to do so. I'll also do some of my own research to figure out which departments here on campus I can reach out to maybe get in contact with those communities, because I do absolutely agree that it's crucial that we include these communities in these conversations and that we listen to these communities as they are our constituents.
Thank you. Speaker Flanagan, the question I had was regarding, I guess, parliamentary procedure.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yeah, point of parliamentary inquiry. Thank you. I wanted to ask a question, not to the sponsors, but to the Senate or to Senator Wu. How would I do that? I know, because I know this is the space where we would typically ask the sponsors questions regarding their motion. So yeah.
That's permitted during debate. So the factual description and the factual questions are directed towards the sponsors only.
Okay.
So senators cannot ask senators questions. That's
Okay.
an action strictly for debate.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would like to add to the two previous questions. The Secretary of External Affairs, we voted on it a couple weeks ago, has expanded his office to have a specific undersecretary, associate secretary for specifically for international students. And I think also, to my knowledge, the IPO office, they handle lots of the legal avenues in which students get here, whether it be, green cards or whatever may have you. They work tirelessly to make sure students are safe on campus. That is something that we can definitely market more to the student body, and we can bolster as the the governing arm of the student body. But those are resources that exist right now.
All right. That concludes the factual description on this motion. Is there a second? Does there exist a need for debate? With the senator indicating a need for debate, a parliamentary debate on the motion is now in order. Each member may speak for or against the motion with a time limit of 2 minutes per speaker. The chair will give one warning tap of the gavel when 30 seconds remain. Senators who are in opposition to the motion that would like to participate in debate may be recognized by forming a clear line behind this microphone. Senators who are in favor of the motion may be recognized by forming a clear line behind this microphone. A few reminders before we begin. A member of each side will be recognized in an alternating fashion, starting with the opposition. Please direct all comments to the chair. In order for non-voting members of the Senate, which includes the president, the vice president, and the executive cabinet, to participate in debate, they must have the floor yielded to them by a senator. In order to be recognized to debate, move any motions or make any parliamentary points. Everyone must wait their turn in line. So there has to be a clear single file line, and members may only cut the line by having the full permission of all members waiting before them. Are there any points of information before we proceed, or points of parliamentary inquiry? Senator Wu. Well, it's up to the chair. I think parliamentary debate is the best option for this. All right. Senator in opposition to the current state of the motion is recognized for 2 minutes starting now.
Is this on?
Oh,
Is this on?
excuse me. As a reminder, if you have time remaining, just say, "I yield my time" to the chair. All right, 2 minutes starting now.
I first and foremost, is this on? Am I crazy? Yep. Okay. All right. I just can't hear apparently. I first and foremost, thank you for answering my questions in the way that you did. I think it was very clear as to how you got to where you were. I find the domino effect statement supports, unfortunately, a double-edged sword in the situation, just because in this particular situation, I believe Amherst released a statement because of the actions that occurred in Northampton, which in some way, shape, or form leads to what we're currently doing, which I think we believe in different things. So I'll keep this debate short because it seems like I am unfortunately the only one who is dissenting in this situation. I find it hard to accept such a motion in these circumstances after having read the facts. But aside from my own personal beliefs, I just very much dislike the idea that we're going to do this now instead of when we could have released this earlier. I think we as the SGA, had plenty of time, unfortunately, to put together motions that, would have benefited, resolutions in a sense that would have benefited the entirety of the community, said that we support, our students, whatever it was. But the fact that we're doing this as a response makes it almost unpalatable to me, especially, like I said, given the circumstances that we're currently in. Additionally, I have a tough time with talking about separating families just because, unfortunately, ICE does detain people, sometimes unlawfully, but they also, I would say, I hate to say this, but I'm going to be very frank about it, removes people who are unfortunately in the United States illegally, right? There are quite a few avenues to get here legally, whether you are a legal immigrant, you're seeking legal asylum, whether you are, transferring your citizenship. I feel like there are several
Senator's time
avenues you
has
can be here.
A senator in favor of the current state of the motion is recognized for 2 minutes.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize what this resolution does. It protects, due to the nature of ICE and the way that they end up detaining people and the way that they go about things just with suspicion. Because of that, this resolution stands against that and protects students who ICE might single out because of their appearance, which is something that they are commonly known to do. And I would also like to emphasize the fact that this protects the student body from that. On top of that, we cannot let the actions of one individual from Northampton, that specific case, we cannot let the actions of that one individual stand in the way of protecting our student body. I yield my time.
There's 1 minute remaining for the senators in favor.
I just want to keep it nice and short and sweet. We have an entire student body here, and you're referencing, a one-time issue in Northampton. Someone was removed by ICE. That happened, and you mentioned that we could have done this before, and yes, we could have. But it's even more important now that we do it because something like that has happened. Regardless of the criminal charges, regardless of whatever you may think about the person that was arrested by ICE, the fact that it happened in this community makes people feel unsafe. It is our job to make sure people can feel safe in this community and can do what they want to do. I yield my time.
20 seconds remaining.
Real quickly, I believe that families belong together, and I believe that every human deserves to live a prosperous life in dignity.
10 seconds remaining.
I'd like to say that the previous chancellor in 2020 released a similar statement regarding ICE providing resources for students who may be affected by deportations, and I think we should stand by that, considering we have a different administration now.
Senator's time has expired. A member in opposition. Order in the chamber. A senator in opposition to the current state of the motion is recognized for 2 minutes.
I am very in favor of this motion. However, I like to keep things pretty uniform. I think like where this is endorsing what the town of Amherst has done. I don't like that in the first now there it before resolved section. It says that town of Amherst designation as a sanctuary town because the actual wording is community or city. Town of Amherst is, I believe, recognized as a city, and the Instagram post recognizes them as a sanctuary community. So I would be in favor of this motion either way, but I would prefer it if it was changed to reflect the actual state.
Does the senator move to amend the main motion?
I move to amend the main motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Just to clarify, the time has been paused. You are moving to amend what aspect of the main motion?
Now, therefore, be resolved. Changing it to instead of sanctuary town, sanctuary community.
I see. Oh. Uh-huh. Thank you. Sanctuary city?
Community.
Community. All right. Does there exist a need for debate? All right. The question is now on the adoption of the motion to amend the main motion to strike town and replace it with community. All those in favor of adopting the motion, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. The motion to amend is adopted. The opposition is still recognized for 1 minute and 20 seconds, unless they yield their time back to the chair.
I yield my time.
I'm going to keep this short because I think there's a general consensus in the room. I have 2 questions. First and foremost, sorry, I know I'm repeating myself, condemn the actions taken by the local police force in the fact that, given that we are a sanctuary town, the local law enforcement did not help ICE look for a man who committed crimes within the United States of America. And 2, when you refer to undocumented immigrants, were they here, I hate to ask this, legally or unfortunately unlawfully?
Does the senator yield
I yield my
time to
time.
the chair? Okay.
I don't know if
A
anyone
senator
else,
in favor of the motion is recognized to respond to the question. 2 minutes start now.
I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that question. I was just up here just to put up my point. I'm an international student, and quite frankly, I never expected to receive a travel advisory from the university telling me that, oh, I should get here before a certain date, simply because one man would try to enforce something that would prevent me from coming here to Amherst for the sole reason that I'm here for, which is to attend university. So I simply think that the presence of a body like ICE in my community, in my locality, in my proximity, makes me feel very unsafe, specifically as a person of color, specifically as a very visibly minoritized student. So I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that question, but that's all I was up here to say.
Do the senators before Senator Nevins consent to Senator Nevins taking the remainder of the time? Okay, Senator Nevins.
To your first question, we live in the town of Amherst. Northampton is not in the police jurisdiction. So regardless of whether this is a sanctuary community, they wouldn't have been there anyway. And to the next question you had, I think that's trivial. I don't think it matters what label you're going to put on a person. I think it matters the level of respect. Saying that someone is illegal for the sake of their existence and where they are located, I think is just massively disrespectful. And I think everyone is allowed to have their opinions, and that is my opinion with that matter. I think undocumented gives them a level of self-respect, and it explains the actual situation that's going on. What makes it illegal per se to some people's opinions is that they are undocumented. So therefore, they are undocumented, and it doesn't really matter how else you say it because it's a synonym. I yield my time.
5 seconds remaining. Senator in opposition to the current state of the motion is recognized for 2 minutes.
I move to call main motion.
Is there a second? Okay. It has been moved and seconded, a motion to call the main motion, effectively ending debate. All those in favor of adopting the motion, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. The ayes have it. Debate is ended. All right. The Senate will now vote on passing Resolution 6, a resolution in support of the town of Amherst's stance against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. All those in favor of passing the resolution, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstained say abstain. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the resolution passes. The Senate will now consider Resolution 7, a resolution in support of the fiscal year 2026 SGA operating budget non-binding agreement. The chair will now read the entirety of the motion and request that no senator moves to suspend the rules. Resolution 7, whereas the SGA is committed to the efficient allocation of the SATF funds, and whereas after the passage and subsequent enactment of 2023 S15, only RSOs and agencies are required to submit a petition to the Ways and Means Committee in order to receive appropriations from the SATF. And whereas the SGA's mission statement places it at a central role for the operation of all ESOs. And whereas the SGA bylaws require paid positions. And whereas in the event of a complete budget cut, the SGA would both violate the general bylaws of the SGA and negatively affect all ESOs. Therefore, be it resolved, the University Undergraduate Senate recommends to the Standing Committee on Ways and Means that $366,189.93 be appropriated to the Student Government Association Executive Operations Account, Department ID A7142010000, in the annual SGA S1 Budget Act for fiscal year 2026. Resolution 7 is sponsored by President Humphreys, Vice President Leone, Speaker Flanagan, Associate Speaker Amaratis, Secretary Bellerive, and Senator Bloom. The sponsorship is now recognized to make a factual description on the motion.
Yeah, I already gave the presentation, so you already heard everything I had to say. But I just want to reiterate that this is a process that was set as a precedent last year with the passage of S 2020-315, and we need these funds in order to operate for the next year. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say at this moment.
I guess I just wanted to remind everybody here of the importance that we pass this motion and stick to it, because we need to be fully funded and operational for next year in order to continue to work to resolve the many problems that our students are facing. Failure to do this could open us up to very, very, very tricky waters that could lead to a severe hindrance to the functionality of the Student Government Association, which would have widespread negative implications for the student body. So I would encourage every senator to vote yes on this, and I would encourage the Ways and Means Committee to honor this. Thank you.
Is this on? I just want to make a point as a co-sponsor on this that I was someone who had my hours cut in the previous one for this year, and I work over 15 hours that I'm allocated now. I believe that if you're in the SGA, you put in the work, we're here for the students. I don't mind doing the extra hours unpaid. It's just unfortunate that we are. So in terms of everyone on leadership, I think it's really important that we do vote on this in the right way. And I just want to say great job to Dylan who worked on this.
And I just want to add on that. I think not being able to pay these positions is a real disservice to student leaders who want to seek these positions. I'm very personal about me, but I'm a low-income student. I get a full ride here, but I need to pay my living expenses, and I get no family support. And if this was not a paid position, I would not have been able to work here. And I love my job. I love what I do, and I'm super excited that I get to work on things. But if the budget is cut and these positions are not paid, that creates a large issue for student leaders who might be facing financial difficulties, who cannot take a position for 15 plus hours a week. I'm working up to 20 hours a week right now, but I'm not getting paid for all those. And they can't give that many hours up without being paid. A lot of students need money to afford living expenses.
Sorry, another thing I want to add is across the board cuts would also cut the other things that this was budgeted for, like multicultural night. I know some of you are new senators and haven't been to that yet, but a lot of students love that night. It's a really big event that the SGA hosts, so I just want everyone to keep that in mind, as well as the other miscellaneous things. I mean, I think this was designed very carefully and to make sure that we weren't, using any extra money that we had to, and so this is all very necessary things that the SGA needs to be able to function.
And if I can add on to that, I just want to remind Senate that last year, but if we didn't do this process, the SJ requested $468,000, and we are saving over $100,000 this year, while making sure that the SJ is actually fully operational. So we actually saving money than if we went through the regular agency process, and we actually making sure that we don't overinflate our budget.
The sponsorship will now yield for 3 factual questions. Senator Silverio.
So I'd like to ask, just because something that we look at the Ways and Means Committee, we do focus viewpoint neutrality, which I know people are like, viewpoint neutrality. But one of the biggest things that we look at in regards to that is we cannot look at the mission statement of the ESO requesting the budget. And so I'd like to just ask, I understand why we need to be fully operational, and I do think it's a disservice. But also, does that put us in a position to kind of not struggle while other agencies will be struggling if they do also experience across the board cuts? Because students from, if we allocate this money to ourselves and we don't cut, that does take away from money that would be going to them, and that does reduce their positions as well. So I'd just like to ask if you believe that that should be held, that SGA should be held above for that reason, or if it should be something where we're looking at them equally and for litigation purposes as well.
I'd like to note 2 things. First of all, it is required by our bylaws that positions are fully paid. So by not doing this and by subjecting the SGA to the same across the board cuts, we would be violating our own bylaws. Secondly, I'd also like to note that in order to be able to prevent future across the board cuts for agencies as well as RSOs, we need to have a staff that's fully operational and that's able to go out there and do the work that is necessary to make these reforms. So without a funded SGA, we would not be able to support any of our other agencies or RSOs, which would lead to a severely detrimental impact for every single student group.
I also want to say that technically with the passage of S 2023-15 last year, SGA was designated a different body from agencies and RSOs because of the executive operational capacity of SGA. So since they oversee agencies and RSOs, they get a special kind of designation during this process where they can submit a non-binding resolution because they need to be operational for the funds to be allocated to the rest of the group. I agree that, and that's why we're working on, SATF reforms to reform this process so that we can, get fully funded through the regular process. But right now, those aren't fully in place. And I just want to ensure that next year, SGA is able to function at full capacity and can continue those reforms that we're working on.
Yes, Senator Germain.
President Humphreys said that in the bylaws, it says that student government in the executive branch has to be fully funded. Does it say how much they have to be funded by, or just that they have to be paid positions?
So the guidelines say that the SATF fund shall pay all the positions listed that I have listed out there, all executive branch members, legislative members, and RSO councils, et cetera. But it doesn't say how many, but it says should fund those positions. And I think in my interpretation, that means funding the positions so that they are able to do the full capacity of their work, which we have found through this year that the cuts that they made last year were not efficient to allowing them to do their full capacity of work.
Can I?
Sorry. I just want to respond to that. I
Yeah.
want to give a perfect example of Secretary Goodchild. We just approved him to up his hours through the discretionary fund, I believe it was. In previous years, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, to my knowledge, wasn't doing as much work as he is now, and he's doing a great job from what I can see and a lot of people see. So I just want to make that point.
I would also like to note that if you were to subject this to the budget cut process, you would potentially see a substantial decrease in the number of hours that our officers are being paid, which would basically make it impossible for a lot of our officers to do the work that is necessary to keep our student life going without having to do unpaid work, which is something that is not feasible for a lot of students, as a lot of students here at UMass need to make money. And in that case, too, it would make the SGA to be very inaccessible because only people who don't have to work for a living to make money would be able to access this body, which would make it so that only, make it much harder for people with lower and middle incomes, including myself, somebody from the middle class, to be able to do this position and still be able to afford a living and afford our futures.
And to add on to that, if we didn't do the non-binding resolution last year, like for example, like the position of auditor, we wouldn't even be able to have created this year because we couldn't audit the RSO, so we couldn't fix our SATF problem. And if we couldn't have the auditor, we can't fix our SATF problem, then how are we effective as an organization? We are not doing what we're supposed to do, which is supposed to serve the student body.
And sorry, I just want to give one more example. For example, and I don't want to speak for them because they're not here, but Rania and Hai, the registry chair and registry secretary, were both working above 20 hours during the RSO application process. They were getting paid 12.5 and 15 hours respectively, and they we're obviously very happy to do the work and they're excited about it, but I personally just don't agree with that amount of work for half the pay.
The Senate confines the citation of bylaws to be Title 6, Chapter 8, Section 1.
So just to be clear, we could,
Senator Germain.
sorry, we could have the budget cut and still not, I'm not saying cut completely, but there could be a bit of a pay decrease and that would still conform with the bylaws.
It's possible, yes, but however, I would strongly advise against it because it will have far-reaching negative impacts for your constituents.
This will be the last factual question. Senator Wu.
You mentioned that the SGA has to be fully funded in order for us to be operational, and that all of your officers are crucial to your, mission and whatnot, right? What about senators then, who are unfortunately unpaid and work hours, like I said, unpaid? To name a few, let's say Senator Kim or Senator Trump, who do great lengths of work for newsletters or for bylaws or whatnot, right? But unfortunately are unpaid. They do work that is, strategic and very crucial to our mission, I believe, but unfortunately they're not paid. So why is it that certain positions are paid and unfortunately are being paid more than others?
Yeah, do people who raise their Okay. So I want to say that right now we are only funding positions that are required in the bylaws. Unfortunately, and I am super open to that idea, and that's why I did non-binding resolution, because you can actually amend the non-binding resolution if you think that all senators should be paid. But unfortunately, in the bylaws right now, it does not say that senators have to be paid through SATF funds. So I didn't include that, and it hasn't been a precedent that's set before. Again, separate from auditors, those are all positions that have been paid yearly since I've been here. And I want to say, on that point, Ways and Means senators actually got added to payroll the year before me, before I was on Ways and Means, and they weren't before. So that's an example of amending it, which you can move forward to do if you feel so inclined. But yeah.
I would also like to note just some historical context. This is actually a discussion we've been having for a couple of years. It was a very pertinent discussion back around 2021. Quite frankly, though, for the past 4 years, the budget has been so severely mismanaged that we are now in a situation where we are talking about being able to sustain the costs we currently have rather than adding new costs. With that being said, it's something that I would certainly support in the future, and possibly as an alternative, maybe even supporting like a course credit situation for senators. That's something that we can have a discussion with, that I'd be happy to help you advocate for. So if that's something you're interested in, I would so recommend you reach out to me, because I do believe that senators deserve to be compensated for the work that they're doing. And I also think that would make the Senate a more accessible place. However, at this point in time, given our current budget situation, senator pay outside of the Ways and Means Committee would be a difficult ask.
In addition to that, I believe that senators should be compensated as well. I believe we've been having conversations this year as well as senators being compensated by credit, which kind of eliminates that money issue there. But that's definitely a way that senators could be compensated as well.
I just want to add also that if this goes through regular Ways and Means process and you don't, pass this non-binding resolution, that could affect senators like the Ways and Means senators who are currently being paid, because as they were the most recent senators being added, that would unfortunately be where probably budget cuts would end up if positions were looking to be restricted.
Includes the factual description of the motion. Are these parliamentary points? Okay. Chair Stamen. Is this pertaining to the motion or? Okay. Well, the factual description is ended. We limited it to 3 questions pertaining to the motion. Okay. Well, a question could be asked during debate if that were to be indicated.
Okay, it's just a point of information on a question that was asked earlier. But I don't have to say it. That's fine. I can.
Okay. Is there a second for the motion? Does there exist a need for debate? I'm not going to read through the whole spiel. You all know the drill. 2 minutes each side, alternating fashion. Opposition starts first. I'll tap the gavel when you have 30 seconds left. Additional reminders. Senators may wish to move to amend, may make parliamentary points. The chair will not recognize anyone in the audience of the room unless they're lined up behind these two microphones, if that's clear. All right. All righty. Senator in opposition to the current state of the motion is recognized for 2 minutes, starting now.
I'm mostly in favor of the motion if the Senate believes that they should send this across, but I would like to move to amend. And that would be to add a be it further resolved clause where the University of Massachusetts Undergraduate Senate strongly recommends the Ways and Means Committee to consult with Attorney Farrell about possible litigation that may result from a potential breach of viewpoint neutrality.
Point of information.
President
Would
Humphreys.
we move towards a debate on the amendment first, or would we have to continue this debate and then debate the amendment after?
Debate on the amendment takes precedence.
Okay.
Does the senator have the language of the amendment?
Yes.
To submit it to me so I can, or I guess you could read it to me again and I'll write it in.
Yeah.
So, an additional resolving clause under which current resolving clause?
It would be the last paragraph. Be it further resolved, the University of Massachusetts Amherst Undergraduate Senate strongly recommends.
The University of
Yeah,
Massachusetts Undergraduate Senate
strongly recommends the Ways and Means Committee to consult with Attorney Farrell about possible
Chair
litigation.
would recommend saying it's the Student Legal Services Office.
Yeah, sure. Student Legal Services Office about possible litigation that may result from a potential breach of viewpoint neutrality.
Senator agree of the language written.
Yeah.
Or does the sponsor? Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
With the second being received, does there exist a need for debate on the amendment? Okay. All those in favor of passing the amendment, be it further resolved, the University of Massachusetts Undergraduate Senate strongly recommends the Ways and Means Committee to consult with the Student Legal Services Office about possible litigation that may result from a potential breach in viewpoint neutrality. All those in favor of adopt.
Point of order, there was yes for debate.
There was yes for debate?
Yes.
Okay. I did not hear that. My apologies. All right. A debate on the amendment is now in order. In favor of the amendment? Well, in favor of the amendment, opposed to the amendment. Switch it up. Oh, why isn't this on the screen? Yeah, 1 second. I will recognize. Well, Senator Wu questions quorum. So I hear. Okay. The associate speaker will record the roll call, and I will. I'm not sure why it's not on the screen right now. What's the correct motions packet.
Should I just do it on the second roll call? Or is there one for? This might take a second. Sorry, this might take a second, so bear with me. I have to make a whole new column. Huh?
For a reference after this, the amendment that is currently being debated is on the screen.
If we could hold talk first, excuse me. I'm doing the roll call, so if we could stop talking for a second, thank you. I just want to be able to hear everyone. Senator Adeni. Senator Alamanji. Senator Anim. Senator Bloom. Senator Borski. Senator Butusova. Chair Centenaro. Senator DeMarco. Senator Dami. Senator Duarte. Senator Giuvetti. Senator Eze. Senator Germain. Senator Hercule. Senator Hiranandani. Senator Ibrahim. Senator Imran. Is that a here? Senator Jame.
Please stop the chit-chatting. We gotta hear this, get through this.
Senator Kim.
Here.
Senator Kumar. Senator Lequier. Senator Lewis. Senator Molesky. Senator Mallory. Senator Monda. Chair Mazanda. Senator Mello. Senator Nevins. Senator Nguyen. Chair Onyeka. Senator Patel. Senator Pautuk. Senator Pastorella. Senator Fawn. Senator Prabhakaran. Senator Prabhakar. Chair Rabin. Senator Rue. Chair Sarna. Chair Sharma. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Chair Stamen.
Here.
Senator Silveria. Senator Strong. Oh, let me take it out. Sorry. Senator Tamkin. Senator Tao. Here. Senator Truong.
Here.
Senator Verma. Senator Wu. It's 25. It's 25.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta get situated up here. With 25 voting members, the Senate does not have quorum, and the chair will entertain a motion to recess until December. Where is it? I don't have the calendar in front of me. December 5th, 4th. So let me just repeat that. With 25 voting members, the Senate does not have quorum, and the chair will entertain a motion to recess the Senate until December 4th.
Point of information.
President Humphreys.
I just want the constituents to know that we are trying to fight for you, but some of your representatives don't want to see that happen.
All right. Order, please. Senator Wu. There being a second to the motion, the motion is called, and the question is on the adoption of the motion to recess the Senate until December 4th. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. All those opposed say no. All those abstain say abstain. The Senate stands in recess until December 4th because of the lack of quorum. What?